The Whyte T-130 family of bikes are incredibly popular here in the UK. That's noticeable because basically they're really hard to get hold of, certainly later on in the model year. In 2016, the Whyte T-130 RS won Trail Bike of the Year, so it's definitely got a lot of pedigree, and that's been backed up with a number of other awards across different publications amongst our own. We weren't surprised then to see the T-130 RS come in for this year's test. During our group testing stages, where we had 7 different people testing the bikes at the same place over a couple of days, we were actually really surprised then that the Whyte wasn't performing how we expected it to. With test-winning pedigree, we expected it to be up there with the best bikes on test, and for some reason it wasn't. The reason why the bikes weren't performing as well this year as we'd maybe expect was their use of Fox Performance level suspension. So that's the Performance 34 fork and a Float DPS Performance shock at the back. It's a shame then that the suspension wasn't quite up there with the performance that we'd expect, because the rest of the bike is a really well sorted package. Geometry wise, well, you've got a slackish 67-degree head angle with a relatively long 467mm reach, and the back end, well, those are 420mm long stays, so that's nice and short. And this is what gives the Whyte T-130 its great handling characteristics. The rest of the package on the bike as well is great. You've got a nice wide 29mm internal rip rims with some nice chunky rubber to give plenty of grip out on the rough trails and on the loose stuff, especially the stuff we were riding out in Spain. And the finishing kit, well, you've got a nice stubby stem, you've got wide bars, and you've got a decent dropper post with a nice saddle. Drivetrain wise, there's a great little package from Whyte here. There's a race face turbine crank with a 30-tooth ring, a Shimano XT set of gears, and the wider range 11 to 46 tooth cassette. What we did notice with the Whyte though, and we did notice on a number of other bikes in the test, is that sometimes the Shimano shifting can be really stiff. We put this down to the cable routing. If it's not quite right, it's got a really heavy lever throw, and that doesn't feel great. The wide ranging cassette is handy for those big long climbs or those little steep ones that you sometimes come across. Sometimes I felt that on the newer cassettes or with the new drivetrain that the 46 tooth sprocket can feel a little grouchy, a little grumbly. However, I've been running one now on one of my other long-term bikes for about 8 months and it has quietened down a little bit. The jump from the 10th to the 11th gear though is quite big, and you might notice that if you're used to smaller jumps between your gears, some people might find it a little bit off-putting, and the jumps between gears on the SRAM ones is a little bit smoother.
Whyte T-130 RS won our Trail Bike of the Year test last year, but that puts the manufacturer under a huge amount of pressure to try and double up on it, and it's something that no one's done yet. The frame is unchanged, but then, you know, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is very much true here. It's a combination of a tough alloy frame with some really good weatherproof features, such as lifetime warranted bearings, the sealed seat post junction, just little details that the UK designers have really sweated to make sure this is a bike that will last really well, however atrocious the weather conditions you're working on it in. Whyte were one of the first people to go boost on the back end to create a fully single ring specific frame as well. You know, it's a really tight back end and the geometry is absolutely on point. You've got a short stem, 50mm on the medium and large bikes, 40mm on the small bikes. You've got a wide bar. It feels great as soon as you're sat on it and the bike's in your hands. It just wants to go hard. That means this bike was coming to the test as a real contender, and we hit the trails absolutely expecting to have, you know, this bike to blow us away like it did last year. Unfortunately, the Fox suspension that's running this year in the RS format just can't cut it compared to the RockShox it was running last year. There's a lot more clatter from the fork, there's a lot more clatter from the Evol rear shock. While in some cases the Evolution spec dampers have worked okay, you know, some of our top scoring bikes here have run the Evolution dampers front and rear. It just doesn't work on the Whyte. So is this all bad news for Whyte? In a weird way, absolutely not. Because if you backstep down to, you know, 700 quid cheaper on the T-130 S, you're getting that Yari fork again. You're getting a RockShox Monarch rear shock. The bike actually rides a ton better for a lot less money. So while the RS model might not have shone in this particular context, it's still an extremely strong year for Whyte. The T-130S is an absolute ripper for the money, and the T-130C, which is the carbon mainframe version, is an absolute pinner if you want an even stiffer, even lighter, even more responsive bike. It's just unfortunately with the price brackets we had for this year, it wasn't running Whyte's way.
We'd be the first to admit that we love the T130 platform. The bikes have a great shape, good trail manners, and generally speaking perform really well on the trail. Sadly, this year's RS version doesn't quite have that same je ne sais quoi that some of the other bikes have had, and this is down to that Fox performance suspension. Fortunately, if you spend a little bit less, you can get the T130 S. This comes with a Yari fork, comes with the Monarch shock and GX transmission, with the same really good wheel and tyre combo. It's an absolute winner in our books, with great suspension, great kit, and that great frame, and that's the one we would probably choose.